Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten sent a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Howdy. This is the Georgia Show. I'm Wes Blankenship. We got both the Jakes and Palmer Toms tonight. Hit subscribe, hit like. We're talking about Georgia coordinators, quarterbacks, and that week schedule in 2023. Guys, I hope you are having a fantastic weekend. The Rec Bros have already weighed in with okay. So we are out of the gates with an okay. Andy Stowe is in. We're all in here, guys. Welcome into the Georgia Show. Let's start off with what I just teased. We're getting a lot of questions on the message board and our Twitter mentions about Todd Monken, about Glenn Schumann. A lot of Alabama fans are trying to connect the dots on Glenn Schumann's farewell post to Tresman Marshall. Jake Rowe, what are you hearing?
It's over. You're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. Going to lose everybody else. A.D. Mitchell was the tip of the iceberg. No, man. I mean, nothing really. Honestly, I mean, it's one of those things. I always tell people it's kind of funny. Seth Emerson and I have talked about this like 50 times. We always get a good kick out of it. Is anytime there's like a big story circulating, even if it's like when Kirby Smart, I believe it was when Kirby Smart, the first time this came up, was being hired as Georgia's head coach, and there was the days in between Rick firing and Kirby hiring before it became evident, before you just absolutely knew for a fact. It was going to be kind of a little bit of it was a probability. Well, Seth and I talked about it, and we're like, hey, man, I'm doing dishes right now. I think people think I'm just like working the phones and, I don't know, trying to be like the media version of Jerry Maguire over here with a pocket protector and a short sleeve
Adam Schefter,
shirt, or something. My horn rim glasses, they call them birth control in the Army. I don't know. I think people expect that, you kind of reach out to people, send some texts, see what you hear back. And I got nothing. That's just kind of where it is right now. I mean,
you did hear though. You did note, I think, to at least one person who asked that both these guys, and there's social media evidence of this, they've both been out recruiting for Georgia.
Right.
So
yeah.
That's significant.
Yeah, and if they weren't, that would be news. That would 100% be news. But no, they've been out recruiting. I think Todd Monken was out in California at some point here recently, not too long ago. I don't know, man. Or out west somewhere. I'm not sure. But they're out recruiting. They're out doing their jobs. Listen, that's one thing. I'll tell you what, that's one profession. You get paid well enough to do it. But I'm impressed year in and year out with the guys who, you'll hear them being rumored for major jobs. There's work going on behind the scenes for a major job, and they're out there recruiting full bore. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt was sitting in church with Miko Hardman whenever Mark Richt got fired. I mean, these dudes go at it to the very end.
Just in Sunday school class with Miko, eating animal crackers and drinking lemonade.
Probably feeling a little uncomfortable. But, that's just the way it is.
Jeff Ulbrich was trying to get Roquan Smith to sign on the line while he was signing his Falcons papers. Man.
Please sign Roquan.
That was a legendary coaching recruit exchange right there. And talk about two career paths that just diverged in the Robert Frost woods. Crazy times.
There was a booster club bonus that was going to pay his little buyout there for UCLA. Hey, we'll pay you $50,000 if you sign Roquan. And he was like, yeah, God, give me that money. I need it. Moving expenses. I got to go across the country.
I don't want to start the show with a big nothing burger, but I think that is significant. A significant update that Schumann and Monken are out, still wearing the G.
And Wes, I want to add this too. It's day to day, man. It really is. It's day to day. Like it may be mid-morning tomorrow. Something may be going on right this second. Maybe mid-morning tomorrow before we catch wind of it. I mean, as far as I know right now, you're not seeing anybody else on the Georgia beat reporting anything going on with these guys. When it comes out, it'll come out. I mean, here's the thing with certain things this year, we've been way ahead of them. I feel like we were ahead of the pack on Cedric Van Pran, and we were kind of gave you a step-by-step, a blow-by-blow analysis of Lad McConkey and, how guys, I don't think folks understood, like a couple days after national championship game, I really thought this guy was gone. Like that was all the information, and it trended back to Georgia. Same thing with Cedric Van Pran. We were on, I feel like we're ahead of a lot of things. And then some things like the AD situation, like there were rumors out there for a while, and you're checking on them, and there's people sometimes there are the people you talk to don't know yet. We may be dealing with that here, but I don't think so based on the fact that they've been out recruiting and kind of what, the thing is. I mean, I feel like if it was Glenn Schumann to Alabama, that's a very, close connection there. And that would have been an earlier move. Todd Monken has, I go back to that conversation that I talked about last episode with, Todd was talking there.
Todd,
right? He was talking there at the Peach Bowl, and I don't know, man. It didn't seem like a guy that was in a hurry to get out of town. But
which is interesting when you look at his career history as an offensive coordinator. He's never been anywhere for longer than 3 seasons. He spent, I think, 1 stint as some sort of quality controller, position coach early on in his career. He was there for like 4 or 5 years. But as an OC, he's kind of like one of those lizards you watch on Planet Earth running on the hot sand. He's just moving. He's on the move. He's going to check out the next opening. But it seems like Georgia's probably survived some of those attacks from college openings. You wonder about the NFL. But we talked about this when we did like an emergency live show about Cedric Van Pran's decision. And Tampa Bay is the one that everyone's circling right now. But would you trade what you got going on at Georgia and Athens for what the Bucks have? They seem like they could be not a desirable destination.
Subpar.
A 1 year stop, possibly. I mean, Todd Bowles is going to be on the hot seat. There's no question about it. And I mean, it's not looking good with that aging roster. I mean, it's things are trending downward in Tampa, unfortunately for them. But fortunately for the Falcons, I guess.
We have the photo up here if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, it is Todd Monken in a tweet from the Knoxville County High School Football Booster Club. They're jacked to have Coach Todd Monken stopping by to check on their Irish players. I assume that's their mascot name and not just their players that are of Irish descent.
That's Knox Catholic, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. They're in.
Oh, you're right. It's not Knoxville County. That's not a real place. Knox.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, man, I don't
Knox
think
Catholic.
Knoxville.
And
maybe there's another Mays brother in the wings.
Same division as the Baylor school where Kirby was recruiting on. I think these were both on Friday. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, definitely. Had a chance to talk with Amari Jefferson too about that visit from Kirby, and definitely a clear impact maker. A lot of people went wild. I think that one kind of blew our mind with how people reacted to Kirby Smart coming in.
One of our best performing stories of the past week.
Yeah. Harris English must have sent in a few phone calls out that way and kind of fired some people up.
Forgot that's where he went.
Well, while people are wondering about it, guys, I don't want to speculate about it too much, but we kind of gave the treatment of what Georgia will have returning if AD leaves, and he did leave. So let's say Todd Monken and or Glenn Schumann are looking elsewhere. I think Georgia's done a pretty good job of keeping its staff intact and not only evaluating talent on the football field, but keeping its culture intact with the people that Kirby Smart hires, just to calm the nerves of anyone that may be wondering or worrying about what Georgia's got going on. When I look at Will Muschamp, I know people are going to shudder to think about this name, but Mike Bobo and maybe Coach B-Mac. I mean, do you think Georgia would hire from within at some of those positions, or do you think they would look elsewhere?
I mean, I think they'll definitely they're definitely going to give those guys from within a look. Guys, Kirby Smart made a bad hire at offensive coordinator for the 2019 season, and that was it. It was over. I mean, Todd Monken came in. One bad year, James Coley. It doesn't mean Kirby's not, not going to make another bad hire, but most of them have been good. I don't care what anybody says. Jim Chaney was a freaking good hire. Georgia got to Georgia with a freshman quarterback. Georgia pounded its way to the national championship game, undermanned, everything. So Jim Chaney was a good hire. Georgia had a good offense in 18 too. So I think I think that he's made, out of the 7 years he's been at Georgia, he's had one bad offensive coordinator, still found a way to win a lot of games, still found a way to get to the SEC championship game, for crying out loud. So just trust the guy. I think Mike Bobo is a good coach. I think that, it's a time to kind of hit reset and get into a different culture, and experience what he's experienced at Georgia is good for him. I'm old enough to remember folks not being all that fired up about Todd Hartley coming in either. And I think he's probably a stud right now. And that was Stacy Searles. And here you go. Georgia's recruiting them down the road. They're recruiting them right now, and they're coaching them too. So it's about the man. Years ago, there's a guy on our board, Natty Light. He was on the board before I got to this one. He used to always say it. There's a man in it's about the man in the big office. It's about the man with the big paycheck. And that's what it's about.
That's right. I'm not hedging our bets here. I'm not speculating. I'm just putting out there exactly what you just said, Jake. Trust that Kirby Smart can assemble a staff and keep this machine rolling, because other than Coley, you're right, that was a blemish. Other than him, you got to have faith in what Kirby's been able to assemble.
And what the hell else are you going to do anyway? Right? Are you going to march on the Butts mirror?
I don't know, man. After the past week, I think people have just kind of forgotten that Georgia won 2 championships in a row. So I'm saying anything and everything's on the table right now. I don't know what people are going to do.
I mean, realistically, obviously, no one wants Todd Monken to leave. No one wants Clint Schumann to leave. But if there's a better
I disagree.
Okay.
I think Josh Heupel would love for both of them.
Well, sure, of course, yeah. But if those guys leave, there's not really many schools that are in a better situation to recruit a guy from both a monetary standpoint, from a success standpoint, from a roster standpoint. I mean, it's one of the most appealing coordinating jobs in the nation, if not the. So, I mean, I've not heard anything like you, Jake, that suggests that that's going to happen. But if it does, I think that you got to feel pretty good about the options that you'd probably be able to bring in if that were the case.
Yeah, just go show them the banners, show them the roster, and then say, "Hey, you want to dive in this pool of money over here?" And then, I mean, then I think they'll think they've died and went to heaven. And I'm not
show them both the rings on your hand and give them the treatment from Friday Night Lights. Hey, get you one of these.
Yeah, I mean,
speaking of Stacy Searles, guys, is there a better endorsement for what he's done than Cedric Van Pran coming back? This is just a side note. I didn't have this in the plans to talk about this tonight, but you brought up Searles. I mean, that's a pretty big ringing endorsement, I would think, anyway, for a guy that's teetering on his NFL future.
Let me tell you, I ran into Trenton Sturdivant at an alumni event years ago, and he had already lost down to about 230 pounds. Didn't look like he was an offensive lineman, 6'6", 230-pound dude. Got to talking with him, and he couldn't say enough good things about Stacy Searles. I know a guy named Casey Nichols. Listen, I used to go to practices when Stacy Searles was out there when I was coaching, and I saw him make Casey Nichols. There's no way Casey could have ever weighed 300 pounds. He was a walk-on lineman, even though he was 6'5", because Stacy Searles had him running back and forth to touch a wall all practice long. They swear to God, you'd have thought he hated him. Casey loved Searles. From what he told me anyway, could have been lying. But you talk to Chris Burnett, you talk to all these guys, and they've all had great things to say about the guy. And he does really well with young offensive linemen. And, a lot of times it's about where you are and who you're with and how much you want it. And I know that reconnecting with Mike Bobo and getting back to Georgia and getting into this culture and kind of inheriting what he inherited at the point, I think it was a good fit for him. And man, that's an extremely good point on Cedric Van Pran, because, I mean, you ain't coming back to play for somebody that you're kind of lukewarm on.
Well, and I mentioned too on the board, in terms of guys that you could have come back, I would say Carter, Jones, SVP maybe third in terms of importance. I mean, you could maybe argue Ringo for the third spot, I would think, but I can't think of any. I mean, to me, that's just such a huge pickup in terms of importance and continuity on the offensive front next year.
I don't know if you'd have wanted any of those guys to come back because, I mean, without getting too inside baseball here, I mean, Jesus Christ, did you want to have to pay for all of them and deal with everybody trying to come pay for them?
Sure.
Can you imagine? I mean, dude, Jalen Carter would have he could have been like, hey, listen, I want a Mack truck and a trailer behind it full of cash. And I swear to God, they'd have tried to put it together.
Yeah. And I want a parking spot out front of Butts Mirror to put it in too.
Yeah, this is inside baseball, but I'm just wondering out loud. I'm not asking any of y'all to answer this question. Imagine being the person that has to balance those books on all these NIL deals right now and having to hear from everyone's handlers because we know after this past week that's a big deal. I don't envy any of those people, man. I don't know how much sleep they get or what they do instead of sleep because it's probably illegal.
You should be glad that the guy balancing Georgia's NIL books is not the guy running Florida's NIL books. That's what
there's only one man for the job.
They don't have any more books.
It's Marty Bird. Marty Bird is the man for the job. He's got the composure. He's got the composure. He pulls out the composure card and he knows his numbers, dude. Marty Bird. Ozark, baby.
I know that the
Kirby's
people
favorite shows.
Yeah.
I know that our friends at Breaking T.
I love that logo, man. I just love that. That is one of the best national championship logos I've ever seen. I love that logo.
Jake, have you looked at the one of the social media posts that they put out that went into the details behind it all?
No.
I can pull that up after I do our read here.
Yeah.
I'll pull it up because I'm interested in it. Palmer, do you mind finding that? And
I got
sending
you
it
there.
to me, and then I'll
Producer
pull it up.
Palmer.
Producer Paul. Our friends at Breaking T, they need a lot of help balancing their books as well because they've just backed up their own Brinks truck filled with hot, fresh national championship T-shirts and apparel. Breaking T is the place to find your next Georgia shirt. You know you need a new one, especially after back-to-back champs. Go check out Breaking T. They've got every kind of style, whether you're a kind of a subdued, kind of a simple logo person, or you like a throwback look, or you like something a little bit more over the top. Go check out Breaking T. We have a link to their store in every show description. Palmer, I think you're still working on that logo.
I dropped it in the people section.
We will pull that up when we get to it. But guys, let's talk about Georgia's rat poison schedule in 2023. Over the last several days, we've seen people go ahead and dive into Georgia's schedule and Georgia rivals. If you mix it up with people on Twitter, God bless you. Take a break from it. Go outside, look at the sunshine, take a walk, because everybody's coming at you right now if you're a Georgia fan. But you're hearing, first and foremost, about how terrible and how easy Georgia's schedule will be in 2023. If you're a Georgia fan, that's aggravating. If you're Kirby Smart, now you've got to find a way to manufacture this rat poison and turn it into bulletin board material, just like he found a way to do for this national championship. Because if you've heard some of the post-game quotes, somehow he had Georgia players believing that people predicted Georgia to go 5-7 and 6-6. That's an actual quote from Zion Loeb.
Yeah, he'll be capable. If he can do it this year, he will have proved himself capable of Jim Jones type stuff. I swear to God.
No question.
There's something in the Powerade coolers.
Yeah, that's basically the way it is. I don't know, man. The schedule's weak, dude. The schedule's weak. I mean, the schedule's weak enough that if I'm Kirby, I go to SEC Media Days and I just kind of lean into the microphone. I said, at the University of Georgia, the hunt continues. Questions. That's how confident I would be in it, because they're going to beat everybody's ass. I mean, I just because that schedule's weak. I mean, they had Oklahoma on there, right? Well, I mean, Oklahoma doesn't look like a just big juggernaut right now either, but they had them on there, and the SEC took that out of play for good reason. All right, good. I mean, you don't want to go to Oklahoma and pay all that stuff and get all that to happen, and then not get a return trip down the road for a non-con. I mean, that's just bad business. You don't do things like that. But I still think we're going to see him play pretty soon because of that game getting canceled from when Oklahoma joins the league. But now, I mean, look at that, dude. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe South Carolina could give you some problems, but that thing's at home. I mean, I guess one of the last times they were in Sanford Stadium. Maybe it was the last time they, really, gave Georgia some problems. I don't know. But
2021, they played that night game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and
JT made his return back, threw for over 300 yards.
Yeah, a couple bad interception from JT.
Nolan had a safety.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see it on that schedule.
I don't think it's rat poison to say that the schedule is bad or to buy into it. To me, if I'm Kirby Smart, the message is, look, we've gotten to the hill and we've had harder paths. There's no reason we can't come out and dominate.
You've got to
take everybody seriously, of course. I'm not saying that, but the reality is this is one of the worst Georgia schedules in a while.
Yeah, I mean, especially until you get to November. I mean, that Ole Miss Tennessee or the Ole Miss Tennessee back-to-back is pretty solid. I mean, that's because Ole Miss can be pretty good. They got a quarterback coming back. Not everybody does. Tennessee.
Well, it ticked up like 5 out of the transfer portal.
Yeah, that's true too. They may one of those may supplant.
I would imagine that they're going with Spencer Sanders.
Maybe.
Who knows?
His last year of eligibility, I don't know why he would go there if he wasn't guaranteed a starter.
Yeah. But outside of that, man, it is bad. I mean,
here's what I'll say about the rat poison element. It is difficult, I think, to just assume you're going to roll through these things and roll through these games because of two things. A lot of times when we look at these schedules at this point in the year, okay, January, right? You haven't even gone through spring yet. A lot of these SEC teams look like, you kind of judge them based on last year. And what I have pulled up on the screen, sorry if you're listening on audio, but Bill Connolly from ESPN has the SP plus ratings. I don't know how all of it works. He throws a bunch of teams into a computer and he gets a margin of victory and a win probability out of it. And he put Georgia's schedule together based on 2022. And I don't think that's necessarily going to translate to 2023, maybe a few data points here or there, give or take. But Georgia is a win probability of at least 91% against every team on the 2023 schedule except for Tennessee. And that game's on the road, and Georgia's win probability in that one is 65%. So when you look at that kind of stuff, the win probability, I guess it does make it rat poison. But you also have to figure out that the transfer portal is going to help a lot of these teams out in ways that you can't really predict right now. And I think that's kind of the X factor when you look at some of this that may not make this schedule as easy as you think it's going to be. And it always turns out that way in the SEC. Some team ends up being better than you think they're going to be at this point in the year.
And if
look at TCU. No one, based on their previous year, would have expected them to be nearly the game that they were. I mean, they didn't end up being a game for Georgia, but the team that they were, this season based on their 2021 year. So, yeah, I mean, I think that you can look at this schedule and say, I mean, I'm surprised that South Carolina number is that high with what they've got returning. The momentum that they picked up late in the season, that's the one that probably surprises me the most.
Yeah, again, it's based on this year's data. So that one I would expect Georgia's win probability would probably dip.
I think the one that you said it, Wes, and it's interesting when you're talking about transfer portal, because if there's one team on the schedule that probably benefited the most and probably will look like a different team as a result, it's probably Auburn. And they'll have some stability with the head coach.
That's who I'm thinking too.
So that I'm not saying that they're going to be world beaters or anything this year. They've got a long way to go, but Auburn should be better than Auburn last year. And like I said, I don't think they're going to have that little dark cloud hanging over them of hey, the boosters are trying to get the coach fired again.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then that too could turn into a pretty interesting 2-game stretch because Kentucky's got Devin Leary and Barry Brown.
True.
And, those are some good players there for them. They're always going to be tough and physical on defense. They're all, they're going to have a physical offensive line, whether it's any good or not. I don't know what they did at offensive coordinator, if they ended up getting Liam Neeson or whatever his name is. Cohen, that's it. Yeah, I knew it wasn't Liam
We'll
Neeson.
find you.
He's got a particular set of skills. But yeah, I think that
is
could
back.
be one
He
too.
is back.
Yeah, so yeah, they got him back. That's another one that's kind of intriguing. I mean, I think Georgia probably beat South Carolina pretty good. Because that one's going to be like a SEC opener. Be shocked if Georgia didn't figure out a way to get that bad boy at night.
Gosh, opening up with UT Martin and Ball State, they're probably installing some Gamecock stuff.
And I'll tell you another thing too.
I bet you it's the 3:30 game though.
It
may
depends
be
what South Carolina does.
I know Florida and Tennessee is that weekend, so maybe that's the South. Or that's
I would imagine they like taking
game.
that rivalry game. Georgia, then Georgia and South Carolina could get that.
Wait a second, isn't this the first year where SEC on CBS is no longer the?
No,
I thought there's one more year.
There's one more year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah, it could be. With Rattler figuring it out, defending back-to-back champs, maybe they want to do that.
I don't know if Rattler's going to figure out Georgia's defense.
Michael Williams and
that's something
Bear
we're going to dive
Alexander.
into a little bit deeper this offseason. But in its own way, it's going to be different. But in its own way, I've got some similar 2021 expectations to 2023. For this year, I think it's going to be different. But I'm telling you, man, in terms of what you're bringing back on the D-line, second level, third level, that defense this defense is bringing back so much more across the board than that 2021 defense did, where the secondary was actually a big concern. Guys, y'all remember going into the Clemson game, you thought Georgia might have to score 27 or 24 to win because you didn't know if they were going to be good enough in the back half to deal with Clemson. And then
Chris Smith showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah, dude, like a zero turn all over the whole schedule, just mowed everything down.
To that point, if Georgia's defense is at the 2021 level, then they won't have to worry about this. But we talked to Cedric Van Pran after the Peach Bowl, and everyone that we got to talk to, Jamon Dumas-Johnson, Kenny McIntosh, Smile Munden, they pointed to that game like Mizzou where they were tested and they learned their mettle, they learned what they were made of, and it helped them out in a game like Ohio State. So if you do just blaze through everybody, maybe some of these younger guys don't necessarily know what it feels like to get punched in the mouth. And we're looking way too far down the road, but I could see that potentially being something where, we're hearing from Kirby Smart in December, and he's like, yeah, we beat everybody by 4 touchdowns, and we haven't faced any adversity.
Oh, man.
You mentioned getting punched in the mouth, but I think that you've got those first 2 games to get those young guys at least acclimated to doing it when the band's playing. They're going to get a heavy dose of it. So, yeah, they'll probably have some growing pains. I think that's inevitable, but that's a really nice start for to introduce young guys.
But we're talking about young guys. There's not going to be that many young guys. You're pretty experienced all over the field. Whether it's offense, wide receiver, you feel very experienced. Tight end, you feel very experienced. Offensive line, you're breaking in essentially one new starter there. Quarterback, yeah, but running back, you bring back everyone. Except for Kenny, but defense, you're experienced up and down the field. There's not a ton of young guys. They might be in the rotation, but there's not going to be a ton of young guys that are being counted on very heavily, with the exception of maybe outside linebacker.
Yeah, and maybe safety.
Yeah, if they decide to go with Jonel Aguero there, that could be one. They still got Dan Jackson. Without folks even realizing it, David Daniels-Sisfa played a lot of really valuable snaps this past year. Primarily,
go back and watch C.J. Stroud's run at the end of that Ohio State game. He made the tackle.
Yeah, And then, like what I'm kind of predicting is I think Smoke Bowie may come in and play star or safety. Javon Bullard may play star or safety. I really, really love the idea of Javon Bullard at safety because I think he's very Chris Smith-like with maybe a little bit more range and maybe a little bit more Wolverine in him. He's got like that little bit of like I've mentioned it before, a little Brian Dawkins, kind of just a reckless mentality.
Makes the hair stand up on my neck.
Do you think that's something that they'll do? Do you think that's something that they'll do this spring is move Bullard to safety because they know what they have in him at star, use it as an opportunity to develop Smoke as a star and see what you got in Bullard at safety? I mean, is that kind of what you're thinking? I don't know if Dan will be back by then.
I guess, yeah, that's part of it. There were some snaps, and I want to say it wasn't in the national championship game, I don't think. But there were some snaps there where Bullard was playing safety at some point late there in the year. Maybe it was against LSU, but Bullard was lining up back there. And, maybe it was just kind of the star had to kind of sink based on emotion. I don't know what happened there, but I just think would play the position
I
really
remember
well.
that. I think it was LSU. It might have been one of those later regular season games like a Georgia Tech or something.
I will say this, though, before I forget this, Palmer, I do want to bring this up about the youth thing. The strong safety spot is, in fact, I've talked to some people about this, is a significantly easier spot to kind of learn in Georgia's system. It's a lot easier spot to pick up on, from what I understand, than the free safety spot. Making what Malachi Starks did this past year probably a little bit more impressive. But I wanted to fit that in before I forgot about it.
Let's pivot for a moment, and we got on the screen here the logo that Palmer mentioned and that Rowe mentioned. If you haven't looked at the deep dive into the 2022 National Championship logo breakdown, it's pretty sweet, pretty detailed. Obviously, you get the Power G, 15 rays. I mean, this thing is like if you study flags of the world, and they've got the breakdown of what every star and color and line means. I mean, this is what they've done to create Georgia's national championship logo. 4 stars, paying homage to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The 4 stars represent Georgia's 4 titles. I mean, that is some insane detail right there.
Yeah,
that's
the
some
twin
Todd
balls.
Monken playbook design stuff. So go check that out if you haven't done so already.
12. Did you see the 12 steps on there? 12 steps. There are 12 steps, 6 on each side. Perfect regular season. They covered it all, man.
The 12 steps.
Admitting you have a problem is
Part of me thinks that they designed the logo. Part of me thinks that they designed the logo and then just came back and they were like, okay, let's count these things and let's see where we can find.
How dare you?
I don't know. There's
How dare you?
I will say this: the Braves did something similar with their championship ring. They were extremely detailed in like every single
home runs,
right? Of how it was, was developed, and so
their ring opened up and had a
that was
miniature stadium inside of it.
That was sick.
With like red diamonds where the home runs landed or something.
Yeah, they had a chop house with every beer that I drank inside of it. It's pretty impressive.
I've been getting drunk off this ring for years. I was doing a Buck Bellew impression there, because he probably has gotten drunk off of his national championship ring for years.
He has,
but he's not played Augusta National. He let me know that the other day.
Who could blame him? How long do y'all think it's going to take for Stetson Bennett to be a member at Augusta if he's not already?
I don't think he'll be a member, but I think he'll play it. I mean, Kiz and Billy Payne, and I can't believe Billy Payne hadn't got Buck Bellew on at Augusta National. That makes me kind of sad, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I figured, Kiz or Harris English or Keith Mitchell or somebody's going to take him out to they'll probably fight over it, to be honest with you.
It would be cool as shit if they let him caddy for the par 3 contest. That would be sick, dude. What a great move.
And wear a mailman hat.
Put the guy. Talk
they
about
put Josh Heupel in the little kids caddy.
Forrest Gumping his life, just out there carrying a bag for kids during the par 3.
All right. Speaking of Georgia quarterbacks, let's put some respect on the guys who are actually going to play in 2023. And I couldn't help but notice, guys, there's some weird Heisman odds coming out of Vegas on this one. And everyone is just in a pretzel trying to figure out who will start for Georgia. FanDuel has Brock Vandagriff at plus 3,000 and Carson Beck at plus 4,000. Meanwhile, Caesars has Beck at plus 2,000 and Brock Vandagriff at plus 2,500. I'm not asking y'all to predict who's going to start at quarterback. I think a lot of people assume it's going to be Beck, but this gave me a little bit of pause, and I think it just gives Kirby Smart a little bit more fuel on the fire to say we got an open quarterback competition this spring.
Man, I don't know. Can you even bet on any of that?
If you do, I will also include a link to the gambling hotline in this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, plus 2,000 is ridiculously high odds. I feel like for Carson Beck. I mean, I think it should probably be more like plus 5,000 or whatever. I mean, that's ridiculous. But I mean, I don't know. I have a hard time believing they're that clueless about it. There's probably some sort of function there. Everything they do is planned out. They got more information probably than anybody on this podcast, on this show right now. I don't know. This is, I think, just to kind of create some. This is probably for this reason right here. Hey, let's throw this out there. Let people know what we. That way, people can be aware of what we do. They'll think we're dumbasses and we can take our money. And we're probably doing the devil's bidding here. We need some money out of this.
Well, and somebody said, they were like, these guys are in the business of making money. Why would they post these odds? Because if you bet these odds, you're probably going to lose.
You're still going to lose.
These are like, I mean, this is like the worst. These are some of the worst bets I could imagine making. I'm not saying either of these guys could not possibly win the job. And who knows at that point. But there are much surer things that you could do in the world than bet on either Brock Vandagriff or Carson Beck to win the Heisman, let alone we haven't even seen like the projection of starter. Although I guess FanDuel's saying Vandagriff's going to get the start.
You've got a better chance to going and putting all your money on one at the roulette table.
Yeah, no question. 100,000%. Give it to me and I'll double it. Now you got a better chance of that happening than this happening.
Gunnar Stockton is tied with Arch Manning, if you're curious about that. I'm just fascinated with the function of Vegas basically predicting which guy is going to start at Georgia, and two sports books can't agree on it. Everything we've heard, I mean, it seems like Brock Vandagriff, there's some chatter in the comments from Uncle Glenn that Brock has definitely gone to the portal if Carson Beck wins the job. But to me, I'm not saying you're wrong, Uncle Glenn. I can understand that perception. To me, it seems as if Brock's pretty locked in and competitive on this thing, but that's just my read on it.
I mean, I'm sure he's going to work really hard this spring and give it all he's got. And if he can do it, that's fine. But, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it a million times before we get there. You're not going to know anything at the end of the spring. I mean, we're going to still be assuming Carson Beck's the guy, but we're not going to know anything. I mean, I swear, if Georgia wants to try and hold on to all three of these quarterbacks, they're going to split the first team reps and they're going to do all that. This is a tough situation that Georgia's in right now.
But if one of them that isn't named Gunnar Stockton leaves, you feel like you've got a good idea. I mean, yeah, I feel like you would know then. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, once somebody leaves, you're dealing with it. You know, like you've got to kind of get on.
And again, I don't think Georgia's in a good situation, only with two scholarship quarterbacks. But
been there before.
Yep.
Been there with. I mean, you were basically there for most of the 2019 season because DeJuan Mathis was out.
Yep.
And
yeah, but my point in all that was that they did it in 18. They didn't like doing it in 18, so they went and got an extra guy for 19 when Justin Fields left. When Fields left, they went out and got two guys.
Yeah, and I think that was more of an issue of convenience because they got DeJuan Mathis because Ohio State got Justin Fields.
To me, that was like, okay.
But then they went and sought out Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, because they needed somebody they knew they could feel like could play and knew what they were going to do and be a backup. Yeah. I don't think they signed DeJuan Mathis to be a backup. They signed Juan Mathis to be a developmental guy because he fell in their lap.
Sure. Yeah, I would completely agree with that stance based on what we knew about it from a recruiting standpoint at the time.
To me, that was like your starting running back in fantasy football goes down. Let's pick up every running back on the waiver wire that I've heard of and I think might score. Let's just pick up everybody and we'll let them.
Yeah.
I
mean,
can tell
follow
you
them
this.
in.
Jackson Muschamp is making these road trips next year with only 2 scholarship quarterbacks.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
But I knew people who thought that Juan Mathis would be a better receiver in college than he would be a quarterback.
And that's the position he's playing now at Temple.
That's what I'm saying. He was a clearly developmental prospect for sure.
Guys, before we get to dog stocks, ZG is in the comments here. What are the thoughts on Kirby? Do y'all have any thoughts on him?
He is good.
Sweet video game.
He's got a lot of job security.
He is good at his job.
I don't think he's leaving for Alabama or the NFL.
What about the Colts? Yeah.
Don't think so.
Someone tried to troll me in my comments the other day with it was a very well done breaking news graphic. It was just a picture of Kirby Smart, and at the bottom of the picture it just said breaking.
Well, I'm pretty sure that was just a breaking news graphic that they stole from ESPN or something.
No, I think they made it. It looked pretty. I'll give that to them. They got some good Photoshop skills. All right, dog stocks, guys. Stock up, stock down. I'll get us started. We're in the NFL playoff season. It's the greatest weekend of the year in divisional NFL playoffs. And with the Bengals' victory over the Bills, Georgia's streak of sending at least one dog to the Super Bowl remains alive, because Trey Hill is on the roster and the Chiefs have Cole and who else? I'm missing somebody, right?
Malik Herring.
Malik, that's right. Forsyth High School.
Forsyth, Georgia.
Mary Persons High School.
Yes.
That's right. So stock up on the dogs in the Super Bowl. They're going. At least one of them is going to be playing for that Lombardi Trophy yet again. LSU and Georgia tied for that record. I believe it's at, what is it, like 20 years? Something 20
I think it's 20. I think we're up to 22 straight years.
22 straight years, man. Just means more, baby.
You know what breaks my heart, though, is we won't be getting an email from Steve Colquitt from Georgia Sports Info about that. Steve is now the director of communications at Oconee County Schools, and I'm sad.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Steve's going to be emailing us about Oconee County and North Oconee and Central Oconee and Western Oconee.
Shout out to Steve Colquitt, man. Great dude. Great dude.
Yeah,
he's a real one.
Former boss of mine when I was at Georgia. Taught me how to take some pictures of a bunch of Georgia football games. So, yep. Going to miss you, Steve. All right, who's next?
I'll go. I'm going stock up on Davis Thompson. For you all that may not know, if you just follow Georgia football, Davis played golf at Georgia and had an outstanding weekend. He's a PGA Tour rookie, turned pro back in 2021. Got to skip the first and second stages of professional qualifying to get to the PGA Tour. Essentially single A, double A, got to skip those and went straight to the Korn Ferry Tour, won on that last summer. He's now got his PGA Tour card. He's a rookie on the tour and finished second place by one stroke to should be world number one John Rahm out in California. Davis tied the PGA Tour record for most eagles in a single tournament. Had 5 of them. All 5 came on Thursday and Friday. So he will
save some for the weekend.
There's a house on Barber Street had a lot of eagles.
He will be in action at Jake and I's favorite course this weekend at the Farmers Insurance out at Torrey Pines.
Oh yeah, I think I might fly out there and go watch it.
I like that you said Jake and I's favorite course as if you guys played it and didn't just eat breakfast there.
Hey, we walked around a little bit. We saw them putting up the stuff. Hey, the breakfast was good too.
Our favorite golf course breakfast spot, Torrey Pines.
Yeah.
Our favorite course in San Diego.
And I tell you what, man, you sat there and you're sitting there watching down the first hole and there's a bunker on the right. It's just like a magnet, dude. They're just every dude's just hitting over there and just holding his hands up, just slapping it into that bunker. But anyway.
All right. I'm going stock up over here. Rep Womack just kind of led me in with it. He said, y'all ready for Deuce? I'm going stock up on Georgia's chances with Deuce Robinson with National Signing Day creeping up on us, like a week and a half out of the second signing period. And I think Georgia in a really good spot for the nation's #1 tight end. Haven't heard anything really since his official visit from Kent State to make me think otherwise. Haven't put the official prediction in. I was going to let it wait just a little bit, but I think that's probably coming sometime this week. Really like where Georgia stands with Deuce Robinson. Outstanding job by Todd Hartley. We talked about him early in this show. Tremendous work, and like I said, even if Deuce doesn't come, which I'm saying right now that I feel like he will. You got Pierce Spurlin, #3 tight end in this class. Lawson Lucky, a 4-star guy as well. Some real standouts in that group. So stock up right now, I think, in terms of Georgia recruiting when it comes to the chances of landing Deuce Robinson.
And hey, if I saw correctly, Charles Power tweeted out a video of Nico throwing to Deuce for a long completion, might have been a touchdown at the Polynesian Bowl.
Yeah, I mentioned to somebody on the board was talking about him, and they said, this kid's like Bowers. And I said, yeah, he is. He's like Bowers with like 3 or 4 inches.
No, this cat is a Kyle Pitts clone. This cat is Kyle Pitts made over, is what he is. Like watching him catch that ball in the Polynesian Bowl, I was like, Jesus Christ, that is Kyle Pitts. So, Georgia may have a chance to have a Kyle Pitts-like talent on the field next year with Brock Bowers. Also, you're going to have just sorry old Oscar Delp, who is just a tremendous football player.
Yeah.
Who's going to be a year later and year older and a little bigger. Georgia's loaded, and Todd Hartley, man, I don't know what it is, man. I do not know what it is.
Pay that man his money.
Pay that, yeah, John Malkovich style,
no question. From
Rounders. Yeah, I don't want to mess up the accent.
Hanging around.
Pay that man his money. So I'm going to stick in the vein of recruiting because we were talking before the show started about an interview I just did, guys. I don't interview prospects anymore. I haven't in a long time. But over here at DawgsHQ, we just get after it, and so I just called a kid. He put his or I texted him first. He put his phone number in his Twitter profile. So I was like, hey, text this kid. He's number 92 player in the country for 2024.
You can probably say his name now.
Huh?
You can probably say his name now.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm going to say his name is Aaron Butler. Now, you're probably not all that familiar with Aaron Butler because he's in California. He's in Calabasas, which is, where Jermaine Burton, I believe, played his senior season of high school ball. It's where, the A-list celebrities in Hollywood now live. A lot of them, Calabasas or Beverly Hills one. It's a really nice place. I call him. It's a Santa Monica number. I text him. It's a Santa Monica number. He calls me right back. We talk. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is come over to DawgsHQ tomorrow because this is one of the most interesting interviews I've ever done. This kid is not lacking in confidence, but he said something on this call that I don't know. It popped into my head. I remembered it while I was there whenever I was listening to the guys talk. And I was talking to him as we were getting off the phone. I said, hey, man, safe travels out to Georgia this weekend. He's visiting Georgia on Friday. He announced that on Twitter. I said, hey, man, safe travels out to Georgia this weekend. And also, I really enjoyed it out kind of where, your way. I've been out there twice, and I think SoCal's awesome. He goes, yeah, it's amazing. I just wish it had the University of Georgia out here. And I was like, let's say for a second that's 50% disingenuous. All right. Let's say he's just talking to a guy he knows covers University of Georgia, and he's throwing it out there to endear himself to Georgia fans. First of all, he's a real freaking smart kid because most of them don't think that far. I've raised a kid to the age of 18, 19 years old, and he rarely had a thought in his head, period. Okay. So he just wasn't worried about nothing. So for him to be that calculated,
existing.
Jake, you're 39 and you barely have thoughts in your head.
Yeah, right. So I just got to thinking about it, and I just said, I mean, you got a kid from Southern California, talking about how he wishes the University of Georgia could be out there. How far has this thing come? to this point. And, Georgia recruiting, stock up, man, because the way they're getting their message out nationwide. We just got through talking about Deuce Robinson. I was about to say he's from Las Vegas, but he's from Arizona, because I can't keep up with, where they're going out there into these. Keely Ringo, Brock Bowers,
Dylan Rayola.
Yeah. And not only that, but this, the kid I talked to today, what was that now?
Peyton Woodring is from California, right?
No, Peyton Woodring's from Louisiana. He went to
not Peyton Woodring.
Peyton Woodyard is from St. John Bosco.
Woodyard,
Bellflower.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Butler, like
JT Daniels, a damn good dog.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at here is Georgia's starting to capitalize on something that I always wondered about with the state with Atlanta being such a transient place. Is a lot of people pass through Atlanta. A lot of people not only pass through Atlanta, but they maybe grow up in Atlanta and they move out because so many people moved in, right? Well, Aaron Butler is tied to Atlanta. He lived in Atlanta at one point growing up. He has people he still knows there. We're finding this out about a lot of different people now, and Georgia's kind of flipped that script. And I tell you what, man, it's like watching a world-class pianist, because Georgia they strike the right chords. They're constantly the way it is. They got all the hands on the piano at one time, and they just hit them all, so frequently in this recruiting game. And I'm not saying Georgia's going to get Aaron Butler, but Georgia's name rings out where Aaron Butler is, and hasn't always been the case.
Yeah, the national brand is as strong as it's ever been, without question.
Totally.
And may never be stronger.
No.
Because it's tough to get any stronger.
Yeah. Outside of the individual Butler there, that just shows me, that's a microcosm of where Georgia is right now on the national stage with everybody. And I think that's what you want, right?
There was one time, though, Georgia did dip into Southern Cal, and they almost had this cat named Dante Shipman. Dante Shipman.
Get ready to do my thing out in this Georgia outfit.
Dante Shipman looked like a 32-year-old man that kept a pack of Camel Lights, and Jeremy Pruitt was going to go get him to play corner. And I'll never forget, man. I got to go behind the scenes a little bit on this one. Jeremy Pruitt told me, he goes, we're talking about it, but I call him one night and I say, Coach, you going to be able to take this JUCO cornerback? And he goes, man, I can't. I just can't. And I said, why? He goes, I can't get into it. I can't. And so I don't know. We'll see. But that
would have been legendary at Georgia, I think, just for the stories alone. I don't know if the play would have matched up, but he was something else.
Yeah, something else.
Compton DI, baby.
Y'all hit subscribe on the YouTube channel, but also check out the flash sale promo we have over at DawgsHQ.com. If you're not already a subscriber over there, $29.99 to access every premium nugget, message board, comment, scoop that we have at DawgsHQ. And that is averaging out to about, what is it, Ro? About $1 something
about
a week.
$1 a week. About $1 a week right now.
Yeah.
It was a tad under last week. We're looking at it can't be more than $1.25.
It's getting more expensive every day. So don't miss out on that. We appreciate y'all joining us. What's that?
$29.99.
$29.99. Appreciate y'all joining us as always. The regulars in the comments section, good to hear from y'all. Good to hear from some new names as well. And hope y'all have a great week. We'll be back on Wednesday. And by that point, we'll be a week out from the second signing day of the 2023 cycle. So a lot to preview and project and prognosticate there. And as you know, Georgia's football season has back-to-back national championships. It's never really over. So we'll find plenty to talk about by then as well. Thanks for locking into DawgsHQ on YouTube and on the internet. We'll catch you next time. Peace.